Battle of San Jacinto. How Texas was truly won. What if the shortest fight of the Texas Revolution hid the biggest secret of all? In April 1836, a worn-out army faced the might of Mexico on a swampy plain called San Jacinto. 18 minutes later, everything changed. But how did a force of farmers and frontiersmen turn fear into thunder and catch the most powerful man in Mexico alive? Was Sam Houston's long retreat a sign of doubt or a trap? Who cut the one bridge that sealed the field? And what papers, signed in quiet rooms, turned raw victory into a brand new country? Stick around to discover the hidden moves before the first shot, the pride that blinded a veteran army, and the simple tactics that hit like a hammer. Later in this video, we'll reveal how mercy, not a rope, delivered Texas its future and why that choice still echoes today. So what really won San Jacinto? Luck or a plan as sharp as a Bowie knife? What if the march away from the enemy, the long, muddy retreat that looked like fear, was the bold move that won Texas its freedom? Picture the spring of 1836. The Texian army is small, tired, and angry. News of the Alamo burns like a coal in every chest. Then comes Goliad. The men want to fight now. They want payback. But Sam Houston, a big man with a slow stare and a bad ankle, does something few expect. He orders the army to fall back. Not once. Again and again. People whisper. Some curse. Was he scared? Or was he doing math that others could not see? Here's the problem Houston faced. His men were brave, but they were green. Many had never fought in a line of battle. Few had real training. Ammunition and food were short. Horses were worn down. The army had families to the east, running from the Mexican advance. If the Texians gambled on one early stand and lost, there would be nothing between Santa Ana and the coast. The war might end right there. So Houston made the choice that looks weak but takes iron. He chose time. Time does three quiet things in war. It hardens your side. It stretches the other side. And it lets a leader arrange the ground like a carpenter sets a frame. Houston used every mile to shape the fight he wanted. He marched east toward the Colorado, then the Brazos. He put wide, hard rivers between his men and Santa Ana. That forced the enemy to chase on long, thin roads. It also let the Texians gather stragglers, supply up, and train a little each day. Not a lot, but enough. The land itself helped. This was bottomland country. Marshy spots, thick timber, tall grass that hid men and movement. Houston studied it like a surveyor with a secret. He knew a headlong clash in open ground would favor the larger, veteran army. But a fight near woods, bayous, and a narrow approach could flip the math. Later in this video, we'll see how a small rise, a clump of trees, and a blocked bridge would turn into the trap door of an empire. Morale is never a straight line. Yes, men grumbled during the retreat. But watch the rhythm. With each pause, the army gained something small but real. New volunteers, fresh powder, shoes and blankets, a pair of 6-pounder cannon nicknamed the Twin Sisters. Word spread that families had crossed to safety. That matters. A man fights better when he knows his wife and children are not right behind him on the road. Houston also played a quiet game with information. He let rumors run that he might keep falling back. He sent messages that sounded soft. He did not roar for show. He gave Santa Ana a picture of a nervous foe. Pride does the rest. A general who thinks he is feared will push harder, spread out more, and demand speed over sense. Later, when we talk about Santa Ana's overconfidence, we'll see how that picture drew him into bad choices, like a bull racing a red cloth toward a fence he can't see. Another piece of the puzzle is the chain of command. Houston had to hold a mixed force together. Frontier riflemen, recent arrivals, officers who liked giving orders more than taking them. If he had thrown them into a big set-piece fight too soon, the line might have cracked. Instead, he drilled simple things. Load fast, aim low, move when told, keep the line tight. A little order can turn raw courage into a hammer. The retreat gave him the days he needed to turn noise into rhythm. Then there is weather and ground. Roads in that stretch could swallow a wagon to the axle. Streams swelled with spring rain. That meant any army moving fast would be hungry, short on sleep, and strung out in bits. Houston's men were not fresh daisies either, but they camped smarter. They picked cover. They kept scouts ahead and on the flanks. They learned the bends of the bayous. Think of a fisherman who knows where the current breaks. He is not lucky when he lands the big one. He is patient. Some critics say Houston was saved by chance. They point to a nap in the enemy camp. They nod at a bridge destroyed at just the right hour. But chance visits the place where a leader waits for it. Houston moved his army to ground near Buffalo Bayou and the San Jacinto River, where trees masked an approach and marshes protected his flanks. He put the camp where he could watch, not be watched. He chose a field that turned numbers into noise and speed into shock. You can call that luck if you like. It looks a lot like design. Let's talk risk. Was Houston taking one? Yes. Every mile of retreat risks desertion, panic, and loss of will. A single hard blow by the enemy could have cracked the army while it was moving. But the alternative, a stand on bad ground with tired men, was worse. Houston judged that the greatest safety lay inside the greatest risk. If he could gain even a few days and pick his field, he could flip the whole war in one strike. That is not fear. That is nerve. Notice, too, the moral edge. Remember the Alamo. Remember Goliad. Those words were more than a cry. They were fuel. But fuel burns hot and fast. Houston's task was to keep that fire from exploding too soon. A leader's job is not to echo the loudest voice. It is to win. He let the anger simmer, not boil over. He waited until the ground, the hour, and the line all said yes at the same time. By the time the Texians reached the plain by the San Jacinto, several things had changed. The army was more complete. The men had slept a little better. The enemy, chasing hard, was split and careless. The rivers and swamps narrowed the fight to a tight stage. And Houston, who had spent weeks saying, "Not yet," could at last say now. Later in this video, we'll walk that 18-minute rush step by step and show how those weeks of patience exploded into victory. So, was the retreat a mistake? Or was it the key? Here is the answer promised at the start. The retreat was the plan. It was the tool that turned weakness into strength. It trained the men, lured the foe, chose the ground, and set the clock. When the charge came, it felt sudden. But sudden is often what patience looks like from the outside. And that sets us up for what comes next. If Houston's patience laid the trap, Santa Anna's pride sprang it. In the next part, we'll uncover how overconfidence, sloppy pickets, and split columns turned a seasoned army into easy targets at San Jacinto. What turns a confident commander into his own worst enemy? Start with a leader who loves speed, glory, and control. Add a foe he thinks is scared. Then place both on wet ground, near thick woods and twisting bayous. That was Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna in April 1836. He was bold, talented, and sure the Texians would break the moment he showed up. Confidence is useful in war. Too much of it blinds you. And when a general can't see, even a strong army walks toward a cliff. Santa Anna made his first big mistake before he ever reached the field. He split his force. He pushed ahead with a select column to chase Sam Houston, while other units lagged miles away. Why split? He wanted speed and credit. He believed he could end the rebellion with one hard punch and then let the slower troops mop up. In theory, that's daring. In practice, it meant fewer muskets at San Jacinto, fewer eyes on the flanks, and longer lines of supply. Later in this video, you'll see how that choice turned a proud army into a thin shell, loud on the outside, hollow inside. His second mistake was simple but deadly: weak security. A tired army still needs pickets, patrols, and alert officers in the outer ring. Santa Anna's camp had guards, yes, but not enough, not active, and not led with fear of failure. When a commander believes the enemy won't attack, the guard treats the job like a chore, not a shield. That's how surprise creeps in, one lazy post at a time. Think of a house with grand doors but a broken latch. It looks fine until someone tries it. Third, Santa Anna picked ground for comfort, not defense. He camped close to marsh and water, which can be smart, but he placed his tents where thick grass and timber masked approaches. He set his line with little depth. He did not throw up real works. Why not? Because he thought the Texians were on the run and would keep running. When you think your opponent is a rabbit, you don't plan for a bear. That's not strategy. That's hope. He also misread the man he chased. Santa Anna believed Houston was timid. He confused patience with fear. Houston had retreated for weeks, so the Mexican leader assumed the pattern would hold. This is the trap of recent memory. We expect the next day to act like the last three. But war turns on the day that is different. The afternoon at San Jacinto was that day. And when the hour changed, Santa Anna still lived in yesterday. Let's talk about time of day. Armies fight best in the morning or near dusk. Midday is for eating, resting, and sorting gear. Santa Anna used those habits like a blanket. He let his men sprawl and relax through the heat. Officers napped. Lines went slack. Drums were quiet. A smart commander can do that if his screen is strong and his enemy is far. But if his enemy is close and hidden, midday is the most dangerous hour of all. It turns rank and file into ripe targets. Another fault sat in his leadership style. Santa Anna liked to command by will. He prized personal presence, sudden orders, and shows of nerve. That works when troops are fresh and the general is everywhere at once. But a battlefield is bigger than any one man. It needs systems that work when the boss is out of sight, tight staff work, clear signals, drilled responses. Santa Anna's army had veterans, yes, but the day's routine, after a long chase, dulled those systems. When the Texians charged, confusion filled the gaps where procedure should have been. Now consider the gap between pride and preparation. Santa Anna saw the rebels as a scattered militia. He had beaten larger foes. He had stormed forts. He had marched hard across Texas and made examples that froze many hearts. That record turned to noise in his ears. He heard only his past victories, not the present danger. He did not study the small rise that hid Houston's approach. He did not imagine a sudden push with cannon at close range. He did not believe men who had run could lunge with discipline. So he planned for the day he wanted, not the day he had. What about his officers? Some were capable. Many obeyed to please, not to argue. A healthy staff challenges a plan. General, the ground favors them here. General, the pickets are too thin. General, wait for the rest of the column. But when a leader punishes doubt, he trains silence. And silence is deadly. Later, when we cover the intel war, we'll see how small warnings failed to rise in time. For now, note this. A quiet headquarters often means a blind army. Supply and fatigue played their part too. Santa Anna drove his men hard. Long miles, bad roads, wet crossings. Food was short. Sleep was short. Boots and tempers were worn thin. A tough army can take that for a while, but the bill comes due. You pay it in slow reactions, sloppy drill, and dull senses. When the Texians struck, men reached for flints and caps with hands that had not eaten enough and eyes that had not closed enough. A half-second lost at the start turns into a rout at the end. Here's a small but telling detail. Fields of tall grass. Grass hides sound and movement. It also throws smoke low when guns fire. Santa Anna didn't clear it. He didn't burn it. He didn't cut lanes of fire. So when the twin sisters boomed and muskets cracked, the first seconds were a blur of haze and shouting. Units could not see their own anchors. Officers could not measure distance. The Texians, charging tight and loud, filled that fog with force. A careful commander thinks about sight lines. A proud one assumes he will see enough. You might ask, wasn't some of this just bad luck? Every battle has luck, but luck favors the side that prepares. Santa Anna created his own bad luck. He split his army. He trusted a story about the enemy that was no longer true. He let routine replace readiness. He placed comfort over caution. And he cleaned his problems with speed, not with thought. When all of that meets a hungry foe on good ground, the result is not a surprise. It is a schedule. So, what turns a confident commander into his own worst enemy? Here is the answer you've been waiting for. Pride without guardrails. Santa Anna's certainty made him slow where he should have been quick, relaxed where he should have been strict, and loud where he should have been quiet. His army did not fail him. He failed his army. In the next part, we'll meet the shadows that finished the trap, scouts, spies, and a certain bridge whose fate sealed the field. Stick around to discover how hidden hands before the first shot made an 18-minute victory possible. What wins a battle before the first shot? Steel or secrets? Let's step off the main road and into the shadows. Before the rush at San Jacinto, there was a quiet war of eyes and ears. Scouts slipped through grass. Riders swapped names for lies. A single bridge stood like a thin neck on a giant. Cut it, and the head could not reach the body. Leave it, and help could pour in. This is the part of the story most folks skip. But if you miss the spy work, you miss how the day was won. Start with the man who looked like a legend and acted like a locksmith, Erastus Deaf Smith. He was not fully deaf, but he heard what mattered. He knew trails the maps forgot. He could smell a camp on the wind. Houston trusted him for good reason. Smith did not just report what he saw. He guessed what it meant. That is the heart of scouting. It is not only there are footprints. It is who made them, how many, and where are they pointed at dawn. Smith and the other scouts worked a simple plan. Keep Houston informed, keep Santa Ana confused. That meant riding wide circles around both camps. It meant watching for dust clouds that rose like flags above moving troops. It meant counting wagons and guessing loads. It meant listening at farmsteads and ferry landings. Later in this video, we'll talk about the shock attack itself. But know this now. Those 18 minutes only mattered because many quiet hours came first. Now the bridge. Vince's Bridge stretched over Vince's Bayou. It was the main path for any Mexican reinforcements to reach Santa Ana, and the only quick exit if things went bad. Houston knew the ground. He knew the bayous twisted like snakes, and the prairies funneled men into narrow lanes. If you destroy the one hard crossing, you turn a road into a trap. You also make a brave choice. You block your own retreat, too. That's not a move for a timid man. On the morning of the battle, Houston gave the order to take out the bridge. He chose Def Smith and a small party for the job. They rode light. They carried axes, tools, and grit. They worked fast and quiet. Planks broke. Timbers fell. The crossing became a mess of splinters. When Smith rode back, he waved a plank like a trophy and shouted, "Vince's Bridge is down." Some men cheered. Others gulped. No going back now. You can call that sabotage. You can also call it a lock turning shut on victory. But the bridge was only one piece. Spies and scouts did more than cut wood. They cut the enemy's sight. The Texians kept pickets in the timber that masked their camp. They hid movement in tall grass. They rode at night, not for glory, but to count the watch fires in Santa Ana's lines. They learned which guard posts were slack, which paths were quiet, which ponds were shallow. Every fact was a nail in the box they were building. What about signals and tricks? Simple ones matter most. A hat wave meant wait. A hand flap meant hold. A slow draw of a hand across the throat meant no noise. Scouts left marks only they would spot. A twig bent at a right angle, a scratch low on a tree, a small stone set on a fence. This was not fancy code from a book. It was farm work turned into field craft. The point was speed. If you can say all clear without a word, you move like smoke. Local guides helped too. Settlers and Tejano who knew every bend of Buffalo Bayou and the San Jacinto River gave routes, fords, and hiding spots. Some names are famous, like Juan Seguin, who led Texian cavalry and worked the ground with a native's eye. Many names are lost, but their help is not. They showed where the soil held a hoof and where it swallowed it. They knew which ridges hit a man's shoulders and which did not. In a flat country, 1 foot of rise is a wall. Good guides know every inch. You may have heard a song about a woman called the Yellow Rose of Texas. The tale says Emily West, a young woman taken by the Mexican army, kept Santa Ana occupied at a key hour. It's a story with heat, humor, and a wink. But what can we prove? Here is the careful answer. A woman named Emily was there. Records place her in the area. Later stories grew into a legend that she distracted Santa Ana right before the attack. Would that help explain the slow response? Maybe. Is it the main reason the Texians won? No. The bridge was down. The pickets were thin. The ground favored the Texans. And scouts had set the table long before noon. The legend may add spice, but the meal was cooked by hard men doing hard, quiet work. Let's talk about false signs. A good spy feeds the enemy the wrong picture. The Texians did not show off. They kept their camp small and neat. They cut smoke and noise. They let Santa Ana think they were still scared, still backing up, still not ready. They did not ride out to taunt. They did not fire at random to say, "We're here." Silence is a kind of mask. If the other side sees nothing, he often imagines what he wants. Santa Ana wanted easy prey. He saw it. Meanwhile, messengers ran like blood through a body. Orders moved quick from Houston's tent to the far edges of the line. Scouts marked time. Now. Not yet. Soon. That last word is a hard one for fighting men. Soon can feel like forever. But scouts earn trust by being right. They say hold, and the enemy patrol passes by. They say move, and you meet no fire. After a few wins, men listen. On the big day, that trust means nobody jumps the gun. One more quiet point. Maps. Real ones were rare. So scouts made living maps in their heads. From the oak stump to the bayou bend is 2 musket shots. From the low mound to the enemy tents is 300 paces. The grass is higher here, the soil is softer there. When Houston asked, "Can we reach that rise unseen?" a scout answered with a full picture, not a guess. Later in this video, when we walk the assault ground, you'll see how those mental maps kept the line tight and the surprise clean. Now, you might think all this sneaking sounds less noble than a straight-up charge. But honor is not only about noise. It is about duty. Spies and scouts carried the same duty as the men who would fire the first volley. They just did it in the gray zone between camps. They took risks at night. They fought fear alone, without a band or a flag. They paved the road so others could run it. So, what wins a battle before the first shot? Steel or secrets? Here is the answer we saved for the end. Secrets sharpen steel. Scouts, spies, and one smashed bridge turned a brave army into a guided arrow. They blinded the foe, sealed the exits, and drew a line straight to the heart. When the charge came, it was not guesswork. It was the final move in a plan built in whispers. And that brings us to the moment you've been waiting for. In the next part, we step into daylight. 18 minutes of shock where timing, terrain, and fury met. Stick around to discover how those quiet maps and silent signals became a roaring wall that broke an empire. How do you turn a tired line of farmers and fighters into a thunderbolt that breaks an army in under 20 minutes? Picture the field just before the storm. Afternoon light sits low. Tall grass ripples like a green ocean. To the west, timber hides men who have waited, drilled, and prayed. To the east, a proud camp sprawls near the marsh, half at rest, half at ease, certain the foe won't dare. The clock says it's time for naps, not charges. And that is exactly why the next 18 minutes will matter. Later in this video, we'll tie each move back to the plan you've already seen. Houston's patient retreat, Santa Anna's pride, the spies' quiet work, and the bridge that can't be crossed. First, the formation. Houston keeps it simple. No fancy weaves. No long speeches. Infantry in the center, cavalry on the flanks, the twin sisters up front to speak first. The men know their posts. They know the ground they must cross. A shallow rise, then a dip, then the open run into the enemy camp. The words move down the line like a spark. Hold fire till close. Aim low. Keep the pace. Next, the mask. Trees along Buffalo Bayou hide the Texian start. The grass swallows sound. Officers hold hats high, then drop them. The guns of the twin sisters leap. 2 quick booms that turn heads in the Mexican camp. Smoke billows, hanging low, a gray curtain that favors the attackers. Behind that curtain, the line steps out as one, not a mob, not a tangle, one living bar of iron. Momentum is the secret sauce. A slow walk becomes a trot becomes a rush. Men shout the words that have been burning holes in their chests. Remember the Alamo. Remember Goliad. Those cries are not just anger. They are timing tools. They keep the line together. They set the drumbeat for legs and lungs. When you run as one, you hit as one. The first shock is not bullets, it's sudden nearness. Santa Anna's pickets, spread thin and sleepy, see figures burst from smoke and brush at a range that leaves no time for careful volley fire. Officers scramble to form ranks. Drums start late. Orders clash. A few companies manage a ragged blast. The Texian front answers with a short, mean volley at close range, aimed low, as drilled. Men in the Mexican ranks stumble and fall, and the rest lose a heartbeat. In battle, one lost beat becomes a lost band. Now the twin sisters go to work like hammers. The crews run fast drills, ramming home canister, tin cans filled with lead balls. At short range, canister turns a cannon into the world's worst shotgun. Fired into half-formed lines, it cuts gaps you can drive a wagon through. The guns buck, roll back, and buck again. The grass catches sparks, smoke grows thicker, sight lines shrink. Confusion multiplies for the defenders, not the attackers, because the attackers already know their path. Here's where terrain pays its debt. The Texians came off a rise that hid their start. They charge across ground that narrows approaches and makes flanking hard. On the enemy's right, marsh bites at boots. On the enemy's left, cluttered brush and tents choke movement. The Mexican center, trying to dress ranks, runs out of room. It's like trying to unfold a map in a closet. Meanwhile, the Texian line keeps sliding forward in a steady, ugly beauty, rifles firing, then dropping, then swinging like clubs as distance closes. Cavalry on the flanks do their part with speed and nerve. On the right, riders flash along the edge, firing pistols, then cutting into the side of any unit that tries to wheel. On the left, they herd and scatter, keeping relief from forming. Cavalry isn't there to win the day alone. It's there to make sure the enemy never gets a stable minute to think. A fight is a math problem, and cavalry erases the other man's chalk. One detail most folks miss: reload rhythm. The Texians don't waste shots. They fire, step, and reload by habit, not hope. Some carry rifles, some muskets. Technology is mixed, but the key is cadence. Officers and sergeants keep the beat with short calls. Forward. Steady. Fire. No speeches, just pulse. When a unit slows, a neighbor surges a step to keep the wall straight. This is where Houston's training pays off. A straight wall eats a crooked one. Midway through the 18 minutes, the Mexican line breaks in chunks, first on the edges, then in the middle. A color guard loses its flag. A drum falls silent. The men in the second line see the first line fold and feel the old fear that every soldier knows. If I stand alone. That feeling moves faster than any horse. It moves at the speed of the human heart. The camp itself becomes a trap. Guy ropes trip running men. Wagons block lanes. Cooking fires and canvas turn into blind corners. Officers try to rally at the cannon, but the Texians are already there, swarming the pieces with bayonets, knives, and the heavy ends of rifles. A brave stand here and there stiffens for seconds at a time, but seconds are all the attackers need. They don't stop to pose. They push. Remember Vince's bridge? This is where that choice shows its teeth. Reinforcements, what little might come, can't arrive. Retreat, what men want when a line goes soft, can't happen fast. The bayous and marsh say, pick a bad swim or find a dead end. Panic spreads along the pathways like spilled oil. Horses scream. Men shout for officers they can't see. The Texians, mouths open for air, eyes stinging from smoke, keep coming. Do the attackers take losses? Yes. Every rush has cost. But the balance is lopsided because their shock arrives while the defenders still tie their boots. In structured battles, you win by inches. At San Jacinto, the Texians take yards, then hundreds of yards, because the moment of surprise never fully closes. It stretches across the whole attack like a tarp, held down by speed, ground, and the enemy's own habits. A small scene says a lot. At one point, a Texian private reloads with shaking hands, drops his cap, then uses a pinch of powder from a friend's horn, fires, and pushes forward with a shout that sounds more like relief than rage. He is not thinking about glory. He is thinking about finishing the job. That mood spreads. When men believe the thing can be finished, they act like a flood meeting a rotted fence. And then, all at once, it is done. The defense collapses into pockets. Some surrender. Some flee into water and grass. Some fight on until they can't. The Texian line keeps its shape long enough to secure guns, seize flags, and sweep the field. The thunder recedes. The smoke thins. 18 minutes have redrawn a map. So, how do you turn a tired line of farmers and fighters into a thunderbolt that breaks an army in under 20 minutes? Here's the answer we saved for the end. You stack simple things so tight they look like magic. Good ground, hidden start, close fire, fast guns, steady feet, sharp flanks, no wasted breath. You force the other side to fight your plan, not theirs. You make their bad habits fatal, and you never give them back a minute to breathe. Now the rifles cool and the shouting fades, but the most delicate work begins. What to do with victory, and with the captured man whose signature can turn blood into law. In the next part, we'll see how papers, promises, and pressure, the Treaties of Velasco, turned an 18-minute shock into a new nation. Stick around to discover why sparing Santa Anna mattered more than one more volley. What can turn an 18-minute victory into a brand new country? The shooting stopped, but the danger didn't. The field at San Jacinto was a tangle of tents, smoke, shouts, and stunned men. Then came the prize no one planned for. A small group dragged in a prisoner wearing a plain shirt and dusty pants. He wasn't just any man. He was Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, the same general who had promised to crush the rebellion. Capturing him was like catching lightning in a jar. But what do you do with lightning? Kill it, or make it light your way. Many Texians wanted simple justice. Remember the Alamo. Remember Goliad. They had friends to mourn and graves still fresh in their minds. Shooting Santa Anna would have felt clean in the moment. But Sam Houston, wounded and calm, chose a harder road. He told his men to hold their fire and hold their anger. Why? Because a live general could sign what a dead general never could. Later in this video, we'll see how ink, not bullets, locked down what blood had opened. First came the face-to-face. Santa Anna, sore and shaken, stood before Houston. He called himself, Your Excellency, as if the world had already flipped. That tone was not lost on anyone. Houston did not gloat. He did not raise his voice. He understood the power at hand. If Santa Anna lived, he could give orders to stop the shooting. He could put his name on papers. He could turn victory into law. The Texian leaders moved quickly. They brought Santa Anna under guard to the town of Velasco on the coast. On May 14, 1836, they set two documents on a table. One was public. One was secret. Together, they are known as the Treaties of Velasco. The public treaty was simple and short. It said the fighting would stop. Mexican troops would withdraw. Prisoners would be exchanged. It also said Santa Anna would be sent home, not hanged. That last part made many stomachs turn, but it mattered. The secret treaty went further. It asked for what the battlefield had earned, but the world had not yet said out loud. Mexico would recognize Texas independence. The Rio Grande would be the border. Santa Anna would tell his government to honor these points. He would also make sure no more Mexican troops crossed back over to restart the war. A signature can look small, but it can carry a lot of weight when the man signing it is the head of an army. Why sign it all? Santa Anna didn't turn into a friend overnight. He signed because he had to. He wanted to live. He wanted to go home. He thought he could fix things later in Mexico City. Houston and the Texian cabinet, led by interim President David G. Burnett, wanted the opposite. They wanted promises now, in writing, while leverage still sat in a guarded tent. Some Texans hated this. They said, "We didn't fight to let the butcher go." Officers like Sidney Sherman pressed for a firing squad. Frontline men grumbled that lawyers were stealing what soldiers had won. But Houston kept the lid on. He told his army that mercy here was not weakness, it was strategy. A dead Santa Anna might make good headlines for a day. A living Santa Anna could order his scattered troops to stand down and sail home. Mercy, in this case, was a weapon. Did it work? On the ground, yes. Mexican units pulled back. Prisoners came home. The shooting faded. On paper, though, Mexico later said the secret treaty didn't count. They claimed Santa Anna had no right to promise independence while a prisoner. That sounds neat in a courtroom. It sounds different with an army in the field. The fact is simple. After San Jacinto, Mexico could not retake Texas by force. The door for a new republic opened and stayed open. Law is not only what a paper says, it is also what nations accept. Texas moved fast to act like a country, raising a flag, forming a government, sending envoys. The United States watched closely. Many Americans admired the grit. They also liked the idea of friendly land between the U.S. and Mexico. In March 1837, the U.S. recognized the Republic of Texas. That recognition mattered. It told the world, this is not just a camp of rebels. This is a nation. Sparing Santa Anna also calmed a different fear. Europe had eyes on the Gulf. Britain and France weighed their interests. A savage finish at San Jacinto might have made Texas look like a loose cannon. A clean, signed settlement made it look stable and serious. Investors prefer ink to rage. Settlers do too. Families crossed in greater numbers because the war looked settled, not simmering. Let's pause for a small, human scene. Picture Houston, leg wounded, riding by lamplight. He knows men in his own camp think he is too soft. He knows Mexico will howl when it reads the terms. But he also knows a truth that hard times teach. Strength is not just the size of your fist. It is your ability to choose when not to use it. That night, he chose a pen over a rope. And what about the border? The secret treaty said the Rio Grande. Mexico would later claim the boundary was the Nueces River, much farther east. That argument would matter in years to come. But for the moment, the line on the Texian map ran where the treaty said it did. The young republic set up counties, posted rangers, and acted like the Rio Grande was real. Acting like a nation is how you become one. Did Santa Anna keep his promise once he got home? Not really. He faced rivals in politics. He denied the treaty. He played for time. But by then, the facts on the ground were against him. Texas stood, traded, and governed. Each peaceful month made the new reality harder to erase. Over time, this slow, steady normal life set up the next big step: annexation to the United States in 1845. One republic moved into a larger union because it had survived long enough to be wanted. There's a touch of irony here. The man many wanted to hang helped ensure the peace that made Texas possible. His name on those pages, even if later denied, gave a bridge from chaos to order. You don't have to like him to admit the truth. In war, sometimes your enemy writes your ticket to the future. So, what can turn an 18-minute victory into a brand new country? Here's the answer we promised: a living prisoner, a calm hand, and 2 sheets of paper signed at the right hour. The Treaties of Velasco took raw triumph and shaped it into law. They gave Texas time to breathe, to build, and to join a larger destiny.